Welcome to Thought Leadership for the New Normal, a conversation series with Sacred Heart University deans. Today we ask our panel of experts, how is this crisis impacting what employers are looking for in their employees? Join us now live from the campus of Sacred Heart University with your host, Randye Kaye.
Hello and welcome. I am Randye Kaye from WSHU, and thank you for joining us today. Yes, we are talking today about something on everybody's mind, COVID and jobs. We've spoken about this in the past a little bit, but we're returning to it today because it's so important. I want to welcome my first guest, coming on back from Skype. Welcome back. And this is Dean Robin Cotton, Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences. Welcome back.
Hi, Randye. Good to be here.
Nice to see you. And here in studio, we have Chris Duville, member of the Board of Visitors in the College of Arts and Sciences. So, Chris, what is a Board of Visitors?
Yeah, hi, Randye. The Board of Visitors is a group of individuals that are essentially ambassadors to the College of Arts and Sciences and support the dean in both future as well as current programs that the dean or that the college might be working on.
All right, thank you so much. And we have a third visitor today. This is Annie Suffredini, Director, Career and Professional Development, the Welch College of Business and Technology. Welcome, Annie.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Good to be here. So actually, I'm going to get back to you, too, with a question in a second. But, of course, as always, you can chime in with anything. It's a conversation. So if you want to add something desperately to anything, feel free to do that. So this first official question is for you, Dean Cotton. Can you talk specifically about what the College of Arts and Sciences is doing to prepare the students for future employment or current employment?
Sure. I'd be happy to. So in general, let me speak generally and then very specifically. In general, the College of Arts and Sciences delivers a liberal arts curriculum to all students at the university, regardless of their major. This consists of 45 credits that basically cultivates, nurtures certain talents and capabilities in those students, including, but not limited to, critical thinking, being able to analyze a problem from multiple perspectives, developing empathy and compassion, communicating effectively and clearly, and appreciating how different audiences might alter how you communicate and what you communicate. So that's generally liberal arts. And at Sacred Heart, the core curriculum is based in not only the liberal arts tradition, but in the Catholic intellectual tradition. In addition to that, the college is in the process of developing a professional development initiative. This is not typical of liberal arts colleges, and we see it as an added service to students before they enter the workplace. So that would include, and we're going to rely heavily on Board of Visitor members such as Chris to help us with this, is to bring in that professional experience to help students get ready for that world, including interviewing and networking and all the kind of nuts and bolts of entering the workforce that wouldn't necessarily be part and parcel to a liberal arts education traditionally.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So, Chris, let's talk about that. How do you think this current COVID situation can be affecting new employees in the workplace? What is your take on it as a Board of Visitors member?
You know, Randye, so much has changed in the work environment in the last 4 months. For those in an office or an education environment, the middle of March was a sudden stop for them in their current work environment, and they moved from there into a home. And that home probably had family members, probably didn't have all of the resources that they needed to be able to conduct all of their work. And so there was a lot that changed at that time, and people adapted quite well, actually, I think, in a very short time frame. For new hires that are coming in, those folks are, and actually they're going to benefit a bit by having the online schooling that they've had over the past few months, because that's likely going to be the way that they're going to be working. If they do work in an office environment, that's likely the setting that they're going to have as they go forward here.
Completely? You think completely or partially, or can't say yet?
I think I think companies would like to get back to an office environment. I think the question is, will they be able to, and to what extent will they be able to do that?
All right, thank you. Let me talk to you for a second, Annie, and of course you can chime in anything you have to add to what Chris just had to say. How do you think companies are changing their recruiting strategies? Do you see this affecting their ability to hire talent?
Yeah, great. It's a great question and such a hot topic. First, for starters, no, I don't think it's impacting their ability at all to hire top talent. And I think right now it's such a crucial time for students to kind of take this opportunity to shine, to self-educate and put themselves in a light to get recruited. But in terms of employers, like Chris said, overnight they had to kind of reinvent everything. Typically employers are on university campuses many times a year recruiting for their open positions, and they weren't able to do that. So they're coming up with new innovative ways, virtual career fairs, virtual info sessions, virtual on-campus interviews. But now more than ever too, I know that they're struggling to actually they're questioning how to recruit our culture when we don't actually have an office to recruit for. So I think that's something that they're really struggling with too. But
like presenting themselves, because in an interview you don't want to just talk about you. You want to talk about the company you might be going into, and is it a good fit? So I never thought about that. How do they talk about their culture if their culture is all virtual?
Right. Yeah, and I know they are. They're forced to think outside the box. So. 3-on-1 coffee chats, virtual networking sessions, which are complicated to say the least.
Yeah.
And they're also using it. They're using it as an opportunity too to host virtual webinars and various things like that. So it's certainly a complicated time, but they're adjusting and they need to. If they're recruiting, they're going to have to again think outside the box and do it virtually.
How do you feel? You just graduated a class and a new one coming in. Mm-hmm. How do you, everyone's scrambled, and I'm amazed, like you two, about how quickly people just said, well, we have to adjust, and a little bit of growing pains, shall we say. Has it worked for the students that graduated? Did people get jobs? Did companies get recruits?
They did.
Yeah.
There was initial panic of, what do I do if my company calls me tomorrow and they can't take me on? Mm-hmm. What if my internship gets canceled? And of course, we had to address that. We needed to also come up with strategies on our side of reaching out to our employer partners to say, do you know what your plans are so that we can be preparing? But it didn't affect them too much. We have placed many students, and they're just doing it from home. They're just not in a work environment. But we're adjusting and we're planning for the fall, whatever that may look like.
And none of us really knows. You look like you want to add something, Chris.
Yeah, Randy. It's interesting. There was a CNBC did a survey of companies not too long ago, where around 85% of those companies are indicating that because of COVID, they've changed their hiring practices. So where it used to be more in-person interviews is now becoming more online, more remote. But it's not just that. They've also moved more towards social media. And there's also a number of tools that they're
for
using.
For recruiting or for researching?
Yeah, so social media sites like LinkedIn are huge for recruiters, and what those recruiters are doing is that they're using, in a lot of cases, they're using scanners or artificial intelligence to be able to sort through a lot of that data and be able to really cull out the candidates that they believe would be the best fits. But unfortunately, you don't necessarily know if you've got that fit just because of someone's resume, just because they put the right keywords in. But what it says is that social media piece, that LinkedIn piece that the students will be developing, it's so important for them to spend a good amount of time to understand for the jobs that they're looking for, to know what those keywords are, to know what is going to help to pull them out from other candidates that are applying for the same positions. And it's also similar to what we've seen in the common application process that many of the students are very familiar with when they apply to schools. Because it's so easy to push a button and have your resume sent, or to make an application, in the case of the Common App, to take your essay and send that out to a bunch of schools. Because of that, you end up with a job applicant pool that's much, much larger. So
because they've been coached as to what keywords to include and may or may not be.
So you've got a job applicant pool now that might be hundreds for a hiring recruiter to get through. And on top of that, you have an unemployment rate today in the U.S. that was 13%, and now it's around 11%. And if you look at the actual rate, it's probably significantly higher than that. So the job pool in the U.S. is actually much greater than it was 4 or 5 months ago as well.
True.
So these candidates that are coming out, these new employees, these new hires, they really have to focus on what it is that they truly want, what are the companies that they truly want to go after. And then the last piece of that is really networking. It's finding that connection into that company that will get them to the next level. It's becoming more and more important. For folks like myself, for me to go and change jobs, only about 10 or 15% of those jobs are done through the application process type thing, or through recruiters, like large nationwide recruiters. That's it, 15 to 20%. The balance is all done through networking. And I think as time goes on, the students are going to find that as well. So having those connections, however you get there, is extremely important.
That's a huge statistic.
Yeah.
Wow. Annie, I see you nodding your head. You want to add something to it. And then Dean Cotton, I'm going to want to ask you, this new initiative, are you including LinkedIn and networking as part of what you're teaching the students? But what did you want to add,
LinkedIn
Annie?
and networking is something that my office has always pushed and is pushing now more than ever. We're telling our students, do not wait. Use every opportunity to network. And how do you network virtually? Get comfortable with LinkedIn. Again, making sure that you have a really robust, thought out profile, and you have to engage with it daily. Take advantage of the Sacred Heart University Alumni Network. Thousands upon thousands of people right at your fingertips that you can reach out to and have a conversation. You never know what can come of one conversation. So getting comfortable with LinkedIn, again, as Chris mentioned, it's so crucial to do that.
Thank you. I think it's very true. I know when people learn sales, and you're selling yourself, right? When you're interviewing, that it's relationship based. That is, keywords are important, and making it through that first cut. But it is about relationships, and we've spoken in the past about how important it is to be a good personality and culture fit with a company. And other skills can sometimes be learned and taught. So, Dean Cotton, is this part of the initiative of what you were talking about?
Absolutely. Networking is definitely a critical piece of that. The idea came to the fore about a year ago. One of our professors who supervises hundreds of students through the psychology department who do internships every year, they're juniors and seniors, and she has them in a seminar that addresses a lot of these issues. And they were saying, wow, we wish we had learned about this years ago. We wish we had had this information or this perspective or this, frame of reference back when we were sophomores. And so that's what started this idea of, wow, how can we connect with sophomores to get them to start thinking about this? Because it's not, typically in a liberal arts education, it's not part of the curriculum per se. It's an add-on. And so we want to make it more integrated into the curriculum, to start thinking about your own professional identity and what's important to you, so you can find a good match for yourself in terms of a company or an industry. It's all about that fit, and how do you leverage social media judiciously? How do you network? How do you do that? Some students, how do you dress for an interview, whether it's in person or online? How do you present yourself, comport yourself? All of these things deserve time to with students.
Thank you. In fact, you've written articles about this, about liberal arts education and how employers look at these essential skills.
Interesting, Randye.
Yeah, go ahead.
What's interesting is that if you speak to, and they've done surveys on, they survey CEOs in any industry, what they say they want are the types of talents and capabilities that are born out of a liberal arts education. They want creative problem solvers. They want those who can think critically, who can multitask, who are organized, who can communicate effectively and efficiently. All of these are talents and capabilities that are born out of teamwork, being able to work in a team, to collaborate, to appreciate other perspectives and work with them, not against them. All of these are part and parcel to a liberal arts education. So it's always been interesting to me that liberal arts get kind of a bum rap in some stories, but actually the data is on our side. So this is just building on that. I think we can even do our students a greater service by addressing these kind of nuts and bolts professional development ideas. I think oftentimes liberal arts are pit against professional training in this false dichotomy, when there's a lot of synergy. One of the things I love about Sacred Heart is if you're going to study accounting, if you're going to study engineering, if you're going to study nursing, you are going to get a liberal arts education as well. So it's not either or. And I think that confers on those students who are pursuing those professions a great advantage.
Thank you. I think we'll all pretty much agree on that situation. It is a very specialized work environment now, but no matter what you do, maybe some professions, maybe some professions more than others, it's clearer, but communication and relationship skills are so vital, not just in the interview process, but in working itself. Let me shift focus just a tiny bit, because our lives and our relationships certainly include our families. Chris, how do you see this whole COVID-19 crisis affecting employees and their families?
Well, it's again, these past 4 months, you think about some of the visuals that you've seen. The doctor that was quarantining, that was holding his hand up to the glass window to touch his daughter's hands through the glass. The mom who was a senior executive that's doing a Zoom call from her dining room table. The kids who are now home, they're sharing the parents' computers because, frankly, they don't have their own, and they've got at-home schoolwork that needs to be done. And so, yeah, there's a lot that's happening. It's interesting. In March and April, Zillow did this. They took a look at the U.S. Census data, and they said, and what they found is that almost 3 million adults from the ages of 18 upward came back home to live with parents and grandparents.
No surprise for those of us that have been there. No surprise at all.
We had one of those as well. So a good chunk of that obviously is college kids that are coming home early. Mm-hmm. But you also had a lot of young adults that were employed, especially those that were employed in big cities like New York or Boston, that were now coming back to home because, frankly, number one, the cities were really, the caseloads were exploding. They didn't want to get sick, and if they did, frankly, they wanted to be home with mom and dad or grandma or what have you. And so the question is are they going to leave? Are the schools going to reopen? Are the employed adults going to go back to an apartment, or are they happy to be eating out of mom's pantry or cabinet or what have you? So I think a lot of factors are going to go into this. when are schools or businesses going to reopen? I think, talking to a number of companies, they're trying to reopen, but the social distancing rules are making it difficult to hit capacity levels that are anything close to what they were pre-COVID. So a number of people are going to have to continue to work from home. They're going to need their own space. They're going to need their own distinct space within that house to be able to set up shop and be able to focus and function and be productive on a day in and day out basis. And frankly, there's a lot of unfortunate folks that are, because of customer demand changes, what have you, that are likely going to be furloughed or become unemployed or what have you. So there's a lot of different areas where COVID will impact the family. And I think as we go through the next number of months, that's going to continue to evolve. There will be, it's not 100% negative. I think it's more negative right now than it is positive. But there are some areas, some industries, some new consumer opportunities that will come to bear from this that could be opportunities for individuals. But in the short term, the families are definitely going to be under pressure.
It's a big topic. It's a big topic. And I think the dust is still out there and hasn't settled. And when the dust has settled, whenever that is, we can look back and see the economic and psychological effect of all this.
Yeah.
Families, you have a family. Anything to add to that, Annie?
Just to be funny, my 6-year-old boy was a part of many of our weekly staff meetings, I will say. And it just happens, and you got to roll with the punches, and laugh and smile through it.
And I think because this happening it's not like you're the only one home with the flu, and there's her child again. I think everybody can relate, except the childless, perhaps, who don't. So I know, and I'm a grandmother, and I'm very, very involved with my grandkids, and my husband's working from home, and we had the 4.5-year-old. She knows already to sit on a stool, and if he was running the meeting, she was pretty quiet. I don't know if there's any video involved. It is certainly affecting the day-to-day life of families, and maybe when the dust settles, we'll see some positives out of it, as you mentioned, but certainly effect on the family and the job hunt and the kind of, Dean Cotton, anything to add about that particular thing?
Well, I do think we're all in this together and are experiencing those that permeable boundary between home, work, and home. I think it humanizes everyone because we all have lives outside of work, and it's more visible now than probably ever. My hope is that going forward, there's always been this assumption by some that working from home would be less effective or less productive, and at least in the College of Arts and Sciences, folks have been very productive and are doing a lot to move the ball forward. And so hopefully this kind of contradicts that in a very empirical way, in a very forceful way, so that maybe old discussions of work-life balance and this kind of thing could be re-examined, reevaluated in light of our experiences through this pandemic. Even once the vaccine is available, safe and effective, and we move on from it, maybe there'll be some longer lasting shifts in how we think about work-life balance.
We're certainly being, to an extent, forced into really looking at that perspective. Now, Annie, you're with the Jack Welch College of Business, so we had Robin's perspective from the College of Arts and Sciences, but in your view, how is Sacred Heart adjusting to the students' needs in terms of career programming and preparation?
Right. So just like the employers, we had to tackle this. We had to start to really think outside of the box. One of the first things that we did was we invested in a virtual career fair platform. Right before this happened, we had a career fair that we had planned that we had to just make the decision and cancel it, of course. But we found it so crucial that we have to provide career programming for our students. We have to provide even more of it, just given the time. So we had our virtual career fair. We've had, virtual information sessions and interviews. We really wanted to tackle it and provide more. Like Chris was mentioning, these artificial intelligence softwares, they exist, and we have to also be providing career programming for how do you use that? How do you prepare for these AI interviews and these game-based interviews that they have now? So going into the fall, we're going to get creative. It's forced us to also rethink what career fairs look like, in a virtual environment, and we're going to have to continue to provide that programming, and even more so. We just want to make things as normal as we possibly can for our students, and continue to come up with ways to provide opportunities for them to connect with our employer partners. One of the things that I will say that we've been happy with is employers are now kind of willing to work with schools that don't necessarily fall within their target schools normally. So we're reaching out to employers that maybe we've never worked with before, and it's much easier to host a virtual event with an employer than to have them physically come on campus. So we're using that kind of as an advantage during this time to host more employers than we ever have before.
How does a virtual career fair work? Are there breakout rooms, or just tell us a little bit about how that works from the student's perspective?
Sure. Yep. So the virtual career fair platform that we invested in created literally an employer lobby. You click on a logo of a company that you want to talk to, and you get in line, so to speak, and you talk virtually with employers. But now with things like Zoom, they offer breakout rooms. There's a lot of opportunity that now does exist that we're taking advantage of. But yeah, it's new for everybody, for sure.
Wow, and they're getting better each time, I would imagine.
Right.
Yeah, we're all getting much better at Zoom.
Right.
Absolutely. So, all right, thank you. Dean Cotton, the university has a campus in Ireland, in Dingle, that falls under your leadership. And how has the study abroad experience helped arts and sciences students grow?
Oh, wow. Well, what you're talking about there is just study abroad in general, but Ireland, Dingle, Ireland is a very special place above and beyond that. So here, students, what's nice about the program we have in Dingle, Ireland, is we have a lot of close connections with community businesses, community partnerships, and not just businesses, but community initiatives. So they know us. They recognize us. It's a very small town. Literally, there are more sheep than people in Dingle, Ireland. And they know Sacred Heart. And so our students go there from all over the university, whether they're nursing students, biology students, communication, social work, psychology. We offer a wide range of courses there in a non-pandemic time. We have a fall semester program, spring semester program, and three short-term programs, one in January and two in May. And they've steadily grown in popularity. Actually, last May, we reached capacity for our May 1, our first May short-term program was capped at 126 students. There were more who wanted to go, but there were only 126 beds that we could reserve in Dingle, Ireland. So students, it tests them in terms of being exposed to another culture, another language. And also, they have to become more self-reliant and independent because they're thousands of miles away from home. So it's transformative. The experience is transformative. And I imagine it's the same for students who go to Italy, Australia, India. We have students go, all over the world.
Is currently on hold because of the pandemic and travel restrictions?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We had many students there in spring. We had them come home early when things started getting especially dicey, and we weren't sure, we wanted to get them home before there were travel restrictions and they wouldn't be able to come home. And we had a fall program that we had to cancel. We canceled our 2 May programs. It was the right thing to do just for safety reasons. And right now, it's on hold. It's on hold until travel is advisable again.
Right. There have been a lot of disappointed people in the last few months, and I guess we're getting used to it and just going to wait it out. We don't really have a choice. Let's talk a bit about work culture, organizational culture. Yeah. Chris, what can you say about the culture of businesses and organizational culture and the hard and soft skills that students have to bring to the environment?
It's a great question. Well, whenever I was looking to hire, I always tried to find people that obviously had the skill set to be able to do the job that was at hand.
And what kind of job would that be?
So let's say it was accounting. Let's say it was marketing. I mean, I ran a few businesses, so it could have been a number of different functions within the organization, maybe supply chain, operations, on and on and on.
Okay.
But they would have the skill set that was specific for that function. But you also wanted to find people that were good culture fits or good fits for the organization. As Robin was saying earlier, people that were collaborative, people that could be part of a team, people that were self-starters, had good character. Those are the folks that you really wanted to bring into the organization. And it's really important for those students, those graduates, to be able to present themselves in the interview process, whether it be in person or on a Zoom call or what have you, to be able to present themselves and be able to demonstrate that they have those characteristics. So soft skills wise, frankly, things aren't going to change a whole lot. Companies want critical thinkers, they want problem solvers, and they want people with good character that are going to adhere to the policies and regulations of the organization.
And good team members.
Good team members. That absolutely, that's what they want. In this new environment, though, you really need people that are self-starters. There's a huge amount of trust that's going to come along with that new hire. You want to be confident that individual is going to get up in the morning and is going to be at their workstation and is going to be working through the entire day, because frankly, their managers have their own work to do. Their managers on a day-to-day basis have a number of things that are on their plate. Yeah, one of their primary responsibilities is to onboard those individuals, those new folks, and get them comfortable and confident in their new roles and help them to be able to be successful. But in a lot of ways, the individual is going to be somewhat responsible for that. So we really need we need new hires to come in and hit the ground running. And frankly, be proactive in how they go after their projects. Not sit back and wait, but to actually take the bull by the horns and move forward. It's extremely important.
Now more than ever.
Now more than ever. And the other thing that's changing, frankly, is and all you have to do is look at the airlines. The amount of travel that's taking place on a global basis today is a fraction of what it was 5 months ago. And so it's not only companies that are saying you can't travel, it's customers that are saying we don't want to see you in person. And so that whole dynamic is changing as well. And I think, as I was thinking kind of before I came in here today, it's interesting, but one of the things that companies have to really be cautious about is having their business become much more short-term and transactional. Granted, during the pandemic, they absolutely have to be that way. They've got to focus on the tasks at hand. But moving more people to remote locations, you're going to reduce the amount of social interaction that they have with other members, because frankly, you're not going to set up a Zoom call just to say hello. You're going to have a reason for that. There's going to be a purpose, objectives. You're not going to be like you were in the office, be able to walk in and out of offices, be able to bounce things off of people, be able to go to lunch and have, open conversations about some topics. And sometimes that's where the more long-term strategic kind of thoughts happen, is in those more informal conversations. So companies are going to have to really focus on that, and managers are going to have to find ways to bring these employees into the organization and to really connect them, because without that engagement, the employee ultimately, unless they're really special, is probably going to feel somewhat lost. And so the company themselves really needs to focus on that and make sure that they set these individuals up for success, and that they do a great job of defining what those roles are going to be. On the hard skills side, it'd be great for the individual to understand all of the software and all of the other pieces that are going to go along with this. But my guess is that the students, as they come out, they've been exposed to a lot of software, to a lot of different packages. They're going to pick this up.
So the software can be learned. I hear this again and again. It's like, you can learn that, but you can't. We don't have time to teach you to be a team member. You need to come in with these skills. So you were saying with the software, you can learn it?
Yes, and that's exactly right. With the software, I believe it's just a function of time. And frankly, each organization is going to have their own direction in terms of how they're going to head and how they're going to try to ensure that there's as much of a collaborative effort as possible given the remote work. But the initiative that the individual takes, and the ability for that person, or the passion for that person to be proactive within the organization, is going to go a long way to the success of that individual.
All right, thank you. Annie, I see you nodding your head a lot, so I want to know if you want to add to that. But, we hear this again and again, and a lot of the skills you're talking about don't necessarily show up on your grade point average, although they are skills that might enable you to get an A if you're organized and, depending on the course, of course. How else do you prepare the students for this new corporate, or let's say new emphasis in corporate culture? Because I think soft skills or relationship skills have always been important, but nowadays with virtual, it's a little harder. We used to say, come to the convention, the best thing happens in the line on the way to the ladies' room. Like, you have these random conversations, and because Zoom is so specific and virtual meeting is so specific, you don't have time for that in-person networking. Hey, I met them at the salad bar and we struck up a conversation. So are there ways you're adapting what the business students are learning to prepare them for this?
Right, and you make such a good point. There are so many students that fall back on their personality, walking up to somebody, say at a career fair or networking event, and
it's my entire career right there.
Right. So now it's if you only have that one piece of paper, that resume that's so important, and say your LinkedIn profile, you have to think of ways to stand out. Like I mentioned before, this is not the time to just sit back and wait for something to happen. You really need to come up with a plan and really get aggressive in terms of making yourself stand out. So LinkedIn, again, for the purpose of networking is so important, like we discussed. LinkedIn Learning, they have many certifications and modules that you can take. A lot of them have been free lately, given where we are. I think you do have to pay for them going forward, but it's certainly worth it to be able to put certifications on your resume, to have those really impactful keywords to stick out from your resume. So I think that's absolutely crucial, is to take advantage of those online certifications. I know too that a lot of employers were putting together virtual internships that you could take, condensing a 10-week internship into an 8-hour course. And that's something that has learning outcomes associated with them. Throw it on your resume. I think too, when recruiters are going to be interviewing in the fall, I think a big question that they're all going to ask is, tell me what you did to prepare yourself over the summer, given the pandemic. If you had an internship, what did you do in place of the internship? And they're going to need to be able to answer those questions. Can't have them be saying things like, well, my internship was canceled.
So I
That's
went
it.
swimming.
Right.
Right. So I
really being able
relaxed.
to prepare yourself to answer that very important question, which I know is coming. What did you do to prepare yourself?
Thank you. So if you're a student or if you are an unemployed past student, be prepared to be asked that question, because you need to have an answer ready for that one, I think. Absolutely.
Hey, Randy, there's a
yeah,
couple
go
of
ahead.
things that I
Chris.
think would be helpful. Annie was talking about the keywords again, and there's actually a piece of software. It's called It's on jobscan.com, and you can take your resume and you can pair that up against the job description, and it'll give you the correlation factor between the two. And if you do that for a number of different job descriptions within a similar industry, you can actually start to be able to pull out what those keywords are and be able to put those into a resume. And you can do this actually. You can insert those words in, and you can actually see that collaboration score start to increase. So it's a helpful tool. It's not the only tool, but it might be a helpful tool as you think about that. And then the other is on the networking side. With LinkedIn, you can put a company name in, and it will actually tell you whether you have a direct connection, or whether your direct connection has a connection, or whether it's 3 levels down. But if you know how that connection goes, you can actually go to the person and then get the introductions into that level that you need to have. So a couple tools that might be helpful for those people that are kind of thinking, okay, so where do I start here with the resume, and where do I start with LinkedIn?
Well, you start with the profile.
You do.
On LinkedIn, right? I mean, you have to, and I would imagine the students are mentored in this. I know I briefly taught Communications 101, and about half the class was like, what's LinkedIn? They were freshmen, to be fair, and they had more ambitions to be police officers and firefighters, and perhaps that wasn't in their wheelhouse necessarily. But we required that they put up a profile. Of 25 students, maybe 3 connected to me, invited me to connect, and they probably all should have. I mean, it's just, so there's a lot to learn. It is a new skill. Are they mentored through this?
Oh, yeah. So within the College of Business and Technology, we have a required career and professional development course that all sophomores actually need to take. We piloted this past year, and we're going to continue to do that. And one of the assignments is, an approved resume, an approved cover letter, and that approved LinkedIn profile. So it's something that that's been near and dear to my heart. My staff teaches it through career and professional development, but now more than ever, that LinkedIn profile with the keywords and having a really built out profile, the more built out it is, the more likely you are to get viewed by an employer.
All right, thank you. And I'm sorry I interrupted you. You said there are a couple more resources, and actually we're running out of time pretty soon, so I just want to make sure we get everything mentioned.
I think I covered them.
You did?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I have you. The 4 phases of onboarding an employee are initial development, ongoing development, retention, and separation. Do you think this new work environment will affect specifically onboarding and ongoing development, or have you already kind of covered that?
I think I've covered that to a large extent. Certainly, the individual and the company are going to have a mutual responsibility to ensure that that person comes up to speed. That person is going to want to come up to speed as fast as possible, and frankly, the company is going to want to get them there. It's different, but I think the company will adapt, and I think the individual, frankly, they're going to have to adapt.
Okay.
Yeah.
With that in mind, I'm going to ask each of you to think about, when all the dust settles, what would you guess will remain as a bigger part of the wheelhouse than ever before, like virtual job fairs? Or what do you think has gained new respect in the employment and preparation for employment field in terms of our students? And when we can meet in person again and travel again, What's your feeling? All we can do is a feeling right now because nobody knows of what will remain as a skill they still have to continue to have. Annie, I'll go to you first.
Sure. So I think the obvious one is adaptability and flexibility. Being able to be flexible, I think, is so crucial. Talking about what are things going to look like. Again, we don't know, but having that mindset is so important. So, for us, again, taking the opportunity and running with it, making sure that we're partnering with our employers more than ever. The employer-career services relationship is really crucial to understand their needs and what they're hiring for. And I think going forward too, in terms of virtual internships, they've done it now that they kind of have the infrastructure in place too. Nothing really, I think the in-person internship experience is so important, and I think that's what the students want, that's what the employers prefer to have. If this were to happen again, the infrastructure is in place that they are able to provide virtual internships. And maybe now they know how to do it, even if they don't have the physical capacity to have an internship on site, they know how to make it virtual, and they know how to make it a good experience for both the employer and also the student.
Thank you. So it becomes a bigger possibility of an option.
I think so.
Dean Cotton, let me ask you that same question. What do you think might remain when the dust settles?
Well, I think, and echoing what Annie just said, I think a lot of the skills that have people been forced to hone and develop during this time to survive and continue to be effective, hopefully will remain. Being agile, being able to adapt to whatever circumstances present themselves, being resourceful, because even though this has been incredibly inconvenient and challenging, there are things you can do so that, you're not giving up. There's lots to do what you need to do to make things happen, to connect the dots, connect with people, and move the ball forward. So being resourceful and as Chris said, being proactive, I think he said self-starting, being proactive, showing initiative. None of that should diminish after the pandemic. That should continue. And my hope, as I alluded to before, my hope is that in general, there's greater flexibility in work-life balance and how people do their work and where they do their work. I think just generally, we've proven that remote working is effective when it needs to be. And perhaps we can kind of loosen up some of our assumptions, kind of traditional assumptions that you always need to be face-to-face. I think there are lots of benefits to that, but I also think that just having greater flexibility in general could be helpful.
Right, thank you. And Chris, any final words on that topic from you?
I think it's going to largely depend on the industry. I think the organization and the focus of that organization is going to go a long way towards how or what changes might come or what stays the same. I think in terms of the character issues and the self-starter and the things that Robin and Annie were talking about, 100%. But if you think about in this area in Southern Connecticut, there's a lot of private equity firms. Those firms actually survive and thrive through acquisitions. It's very difficult to do those acquisitions through a Zoom call. You physically need to go to the facilities. So the M&A work in that particular area has suffered a bit over the last 4 or 5 months. You have a number of other areas, especially in the essential workers, with nurses and doctors and the others in the health profession, as well as those in food service, that frankly they need to be on site. There's no certainly you've got teledoc and what have you, but they need to be on site, and there's no Zoom call there either. So I think a lot of it's going to depend on the organization, and I think a portion of it's going to depend on what else happens globally. because we have a tendency to look at the U.S. and our borders, and we're certainly seeing, what the impact is to the U.S. But if you look on a more global basis, other places are opening, and business is getting back to normal. And if you look at what's happening in China and Korea and other places in Southeast Asia, they are reopening a little bit. Europe's reopening a little bit. So as that happens, I think some of the guidance that we get, or the examples that we get in terms of how this is going to move forward, is going to come from them. Those relationships, Randye, you said it before, those relationships, those are never going away. The importance of the relationship is never going to go. The importance of the in-person contact is never going to go. Maybe there won't be a handshake anymore. Maybe we'll all just be fist bumping or elbow bumping or whatever it might be. But I think that the work environment is evolving, and I think, to your point earlier, it's going to be a number of months for us to figure that out. And I think every industry is going to have to look at their own particular situation and decide for themselves how they're going to take this forward. A lot of threats, but there's going to be a lot of opportunities that companies and individuals are going to want to partake in, for sure.
All right, thank you. So forced evolvement is what we've been experiencing.
Yeah.
We've had to evolve, but that's the nature of limitations. That's the whole field of comedy improv, is give me a limitation, see how we can be creative within it. So I want to thank you all for joining us today. Annie, Chris, Dean Quanten, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for joining us. A very important topic. So I'm Randye Kaye. This is Thought Leadership for the New Normal, a conversation series with Sacred Heart University Deans. Sacred Heart University is in Fairfield, Connecticut. By the way, in case you're not watching in Fairfield, it is sponsored by Sacred Heart and also WSHU. Thank you for joining us. I'm Randye Kaye.